Today we're going to be talking about the February new book releases that I am most anticipating. There are obviously hundreds more books coming out every single week and I can't cover all of them, but I'm covering the ones that I'm most excited for and most likely to read, barring a few exceptions. Sometimes I include really popular ones just so that you guys know when they're coming out. I post these videos every single month, so if you enjoy them, please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments which books you're most looking forward to in February. Without further ado, let's start by talking about the books that are coming out on the 4th of February. Kicking us off, we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's books. I know not everyone does, but I find them really readable, really entertaining. I'm actually a little bit behind on her releases. I've not read the last two, I think, her YA book and then Not in Love. But I do want to get my hands on Deep End soon and then probably do a marathon of those three if I feel like it. So this one is a sports romance. I don't normally like those, but as I said, I really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing. This is about a competitive diver and a swimmer. It's also a college romance as well, so I think they're probably on their college teams. The bottom paragraph of the description says that they start an arrangement, so I think it might be like a fake dating situation as well. No idea, as I haven't read it, but I'm really looking forward to it. Listen to Your Sister. This one is a horror thriller. It says that it's for fans of Stranger Things, Jordan Peele's films, and The Other Black Girl. It's also a debut, and I love supporting debut authors, so I do want to get my hands on this one, particularly because it says that it's about a main character who is 25 and she has to become the guardian for her brother Jamie. The main character, Calla, has to care for this 16-year-old who is her brother because their other brother, Dre, is a bit hopeless and isn't really trying to help. And Calla starts having nightmares, recurring nightmares about her brother's dying, which is quite brutal. The next one is Junie. This one is historical with a bit of magical realism and fantasy in there as well. So it's set just before the Civil War in America begins, and the main character is called Junie. She has been enslaved ever since she was born and has grown up in a plantation in Alabama. It says something in the description about spirits rising from the grave, so I think it's going to be like a haunting magical realism novel, and I do love good historical fiction. I think this one is likely to be nominated for some awards if it's any good. The average rating is 4.35, which is really good, so I think this one's going to be very popular. All Better Now. This is a new book by Neil Shusterman. I had no idea he was releasing this until I looked it up on Goodreads. This one is a YA thriller by him, and it's, as usual, dystopian/sci-fi. It says here that an unprecedented condition is on the rise. It behaves like a virus, with the first symptom being a fever, but those who contract it experience long-term effects no one has ever seen utter contentment. Struggling over this sentence, just a second. Anyway, it says that after infection, they realise that things like stress and depression, anxiety have disappeared. So everyone is all better now. And I do really love Neil Shusterman's writing. I think he always has really interesting concepts in his dystopian books. Scythe and Unwind were both very interesting. The world building was really good as well. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. He's definitely one of my top favourite authors. The next one we have is Grave Empire by Richard Swan. He's the guy who wrote The Justice of Kings, and Grave Empire is set in the same world or same universe as that series, except this one is set, I guess, years, decades, centuries later on the verge of an industrial revolution. It says here that some monks bring a message to the Empress, and the monks say that they have lost connection to the afterlife, so I think it's kind of going to be about magic disappearing maybe, or at least that's the way it's going to lead. I didn't actually enjoy the Justice of Kings series. I DNF'd it, so I'm not sure I'm going to read this, but I did really enjoy the first book. It was just the second one that sent me to sleep, so maybe I'll give this one a go if people say that it's good. The Mother Next Door. This is a non-fiction book about Munchausen by proxy, and I think it's talking about different incidents of this happening, and I find that very, very interesting, so I would like to read this if it's any good. I'm going to wait for some reviews because I feel like it's a very delicate topic and it's one that needs to be handled respectfully, so I'm going to wait. But it is one that I do want to read, I think. Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray. I don't have the best history with this author, but this one does sound good. So it's historical fiction, YA, and it's told in 3 separate timelines. One in the 1940s in Germany, one in the 1980s in West Germany, and one in spring 2020 in New York City. So obviously spring 2020 is when the pandemic started, or just after. So it's the first weeks of the pandemic in that timeline. I'm not sure what the actual plot is, but I do really like split timelines, so I think I'm going to check this one out. The Beasts We Bury. This is a YA romantasy. It's about an heir to a throne, and it says that the main character, the heir, can summon an army of animals, and I love the sound of that. You don't really see that kind of magical power in many fantasy books, and I just love that. And there's also a thief as well, but that's kind of more generic, so I'm more interested in the animal army part. A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. This is her third adult thriller. I really enjoyed her first one. I gave it 5 stars. Her second one wasn't as good, so I'm interested to see what I think of this one. This one is set in a snowy climate, I think. I don't know whereabouts, but it's like a really cold snowy cabin in the woods in the mountains or something. It says here that the main character is a woman who is invited to her wealthy fiance's family retreat, and then she realizes that they are holding a terrible secret. I'm not going to read the whole synopsis because it's a thriller book, but I do really like Kate Alice Marshall's writing. She's one of my also-by authors, so I cannot wait for this. A Season of Light. This one is, I think, a contemporary book, and it's about a Nigerian family who are living in Florida and about the wounds that have been passed down through the generation. So I think it might be a generational kind of story, perhaps. It says here that when 276 schoolgirls are abducted from their school in Nigeria, the main character begins to go mad, consumed by memories of her younger sister who went missing during the Nigerian Civil War. I find this very interesting. I've not really read anything about the Nigerian Civil War, so I'm very intrigued. Red Clay. This one is another historical fiction book. Apparently February is the month of historical fiction. This is another multi-generational saga as well, which I absolutely love. It says here that it's about the interwoven lives of an enslaved black family and their white owners as the Civil War ends and Reconstruction begins. I think it sounds very interesting. It sounds like my kind of thing, so I want to give it a go. And then on the 6th of February, we have The Bones Beneath My Skin, at least in the UK. I don't know what the publishing date is in the US. This is by TJ Klune, and it was originally self-published back in 2018, but it's been picked up by Tor. This is initially set in 1995, and the main character's whole family are dead, and he has also been fired from his job, so he's not having a good time. So he goes to his family's summer cabin in the mountains, and the summer cabin should be empty, but it's not. It's actually inhabited by a guy called Alex, and with him is a little girl who has magical powers, who calls herself Artemis Darth Vader, which I think is hilarious. So I do want to read this one. Next up, we have the books that are coming out on the 11th of February. The first one being End of August. This one is another historical multi-generational book. It's about a woman who has a lot of personal trauma. She has a nomadic mother and an alcoholic grandmother, and I guess it's about their lives together, traveling around the country or something. I don't know, but I want to read it. We've got the Spirit Collection of Thorn Hall. This is a gothic ghost story. It says that it's about a young woman who is forced to live with ghosts in a mansion frozen in time. Jane Eyre meets The Haunting of Bly Manor, perfect for fans of Starling House. I think this one sounds good. I don't read a lot of gothic fiction, but I always really enjoy the vibe of it and also the sound of it, so I've put this one on the list for that reason. Third Emily Wilde book is coming out in February, which I haven't started yet. I haven't started this series, I mean. I am planning on reading the first book probably this week as I'm recording it, so I might have read it by the time the third book comes out. This is about Emily Wilde, who studies magical creatures, I think, but otherwise I don't really know. I just put it on the list because it's really popular. You Are Fatally Invited. This is a mystery thriller book, so I won't read the whole synopsis as usual. It says here that it's about an exclusive thriller writers retreat hosted on a private island which turns lethal when one of the authors is found murdered. So it sounds a bit like that really popular book with the white cover. I can't remember the name of it because that was about a writing retreat as well. I think it's actually called The Writing Retreat. I think it was. And I didn't love that one, but I'm hoping this one will be less campy and therefore I will enjoy it more. The Forest King's Daughter. This one is YA fantasy, maybe romantasy. That's what it's tagged as, but everything is tagged as romantasy now. This is by the author of Frostblood, which I thought was just average, but because that was a debut, I gave it some slack. This one, however, it says it is an enemies to forbidden lovers romance. A young forest princess became friends with a lonely demon boy. He gifted her an amber ring, or so he thought, and he thought it was worthless. After he slid it onto her finger, the demon queen and forest king declared war. So I think this sounds really good. It sounds a bit folklore-y, I think, so I'd like to give it a go. The Dollhouse Academy. This is by the author of Una Out of Order, which I really enjoyed. This one is about a woman who is said to be living on borrowed time. She is apparently the most famous star of the Dollhouse Academy, which is an elite boarding school talent agency sort of thing. And I think sinister things happen at the school or something. I am going to read it because I enjoyed the author's other books so much. Nothing Ever Happens Here. This is an adult book. I guess it's a thriller. It looks like a thriller cover. It says here that the main character Shelby survives a harrowing attack that should have left her dead. Eventually she starts to feel safe again in this small snowy town, but then an anonymous note appears on her windshield bearing the same threats her attacker made. So sounds good, really intrigued by this one, and it's getting good reviews so far. Hungerstone, this is apparently for fans of A Dowry of Blood, which I am, and Wayward, which I also really enjoyed and I wasn't expecting to. So it says here that it's about a woman called Lenore, who is the wife of a guy called Henry. 10 years into the marriage, their relationship is not going so well. Because of Henry's career, they have to move to a manor in the countryside. And it says here that Lenore is keeping a terrible secret from her husband, and it haunts their marriage to this day. I'm very intrigued by it, so I'm going to give it a go. Oh, we're on to the 18th of February. Sorry, I didn't even realise. 18th of February now. The Sirens by Amelia Hart. This is told in 2 timelines. The first one is 2019. It says that Lucy awakens in her ex-lover's room in the middle of the night with her hands around his throat. Horrified, she flees to her sister's house on the coast of New South Wales, hoping Jess can help explain the vivid dreams that preceded the attack, but her sister is missing. And then 1800, Mary and Eliza are torn from their loving home in Ireland and forced onto a convict ship heading for Australia. As you all probably know, I was in Australia recently, so I would like to read this one for like the historical elements. I learned a lot at the Australian museums actually, so I'd like to apply that knowledge while I read this book. Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. This one is set in Ireland. It's about a woman called Ciara who makes a split decision that will change everything. It says that Ciara straps her 2 young daughters into her car and drives away, head spinning. All she knows for certain is that home is no longer safe. So that sounds very mysterious. It says that it's literary fiction and contemporary, so I am intrigued by it. Also on the 18th of February we have Rebel Witch. This is the sequel to Heartless Hunter or The Crimson Moth, which is a YA romantasy about a witch and a witch hunter. That's all I'm going to say. You've probably heard of this one, it's really popular, and I will be reading this sequel probably as soon as it comes out, if I feel like it, if not very, very soon. Wooing the Witch Queen. This one I just thought sounded funny because it talks about a gaslamp lit world where hags and ogres lurk in thick pine forests, and there are 3 magical queens who form an uneasy alliance. And then love turns their world upside down, so there's like a wicked sorceress, a dark wizard, a librarian, so it does sound like a fun romantasy book. Nothing too serious. Cursebound, the sequel to Feybound, is also out. I haven't read the first book, so I can't tell you what it's about. Something about Fae, I imagine. That's coming out on the 18th of February. Famous Last Words is coming out in the US in February. I think it came out on the 30th of January in the UK. I've hopefully already read it by the time you're watching this, but I can't guarantee anything. This is a thriller book, so I'm not going to read the synopsis, but it's by author Gillian McAllister, who is a very popular author in the UK. She writes some really good stuff, so I'm very excited to read this, hopefully soon. Something in the Walls. This one is about a child psychologist called Mina, and there's a massive heat wave in Britain. I think it's sending people a bit wild. She's mourning the death of her brother, and she comes across a journalist somehow who finds out that there is a 13-year-old called Alice who claims that a witch is haunting her, and I feel like it's giving like intense yellow wallpaper vibes. So I'd really like to read this one for like the weirdness of it, I think. And especially if it's about witches as well, because I do love a witch story. The Otherwhere Post. This is a dark fantasy book. It says here that there's a deadly mystery that spans worlds and a teenage girl who must risk everything to uncover the truth. It says that 7 years ago, Maeve lost her world, her father, and even her name. Desperate to escape the stain of her father's crimes, she lives under a fake name, never staying in one place long enough to put down roots. And she receives a mysterious letter with 4 impossible words which say, "Your father was innocent." Very mysterious, very intriguing. Rustler Mountain. This one is a Western romance. I was going to say I think, but looking at that cover, that's definitely what this is. It's set in Oregon at a place called Rustler Mountain, and it's a romance book. I don't think I really need to say anything more. And then finally we're on to the 25th of February. This first one is called The Fourth Consort, and this is by the author of Mickey 17. It's a standalone sci-fi book. I've not actually read Mickey 7. No, it is 7. It is Mickey 7, I'm not losing my mind. The film is called Mickey 17. I don't know why they changed that. It says here that the main character is a hero. His name is Dalton. He's one of humankind's first representatives to Unity, a pan-species confederation working to bring all sentient life into a single benevolent brotherhood. Or that's what they told him. I'm very intrigued by this. I haven't read anything by this author before, but his other book got a lot of hype, so I would like to read it. Follow Me to Africa. This one is another historical book, this time following a paleoanthropologist, and it's dual timeline, partly set in 1983 and partly set in the 1930s, I think. I love the sound of this. I used to want to be a paleontologist, and it's intergenerational, so I'm gonna give it a go. Tilda is Visible. This is magical realism / contemporary about a woman who literally starts to disappear. Very intriguing. and I'm rushing through these now because my battery is dying. Finally, we have Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is another alien encounter story by him. I don't think there are any spiders or octopuses in this one, but it says that people are discovering new planets and they're all fair game and stuff, and I'd really like to read this one. It is tagged as horror, so I'm very intrigued. And that is it. I need to hurry up because my battery is dying. Like I said, tell me which ones you're interested in below and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!